Oh man, so Plug Power, the hydrogen fuel cell play, is up 12.4% in today's market after announcing a strategic partner with Airbus. Let's take a look into Plug Power and see whether this is something which should be on our radar and whether this stock has potential to give us some good returns. We know that Plug Power is a very popular stock amongst growth investors and also retail investors who are seeing it as a bit of a growth and renewable play. Now, we know the renewable plays have been doing really well over the last couple of days. We know generally over the last couple of years they've been doing well, and they've been falling into legislative favor globally after the Paris Accord, and things are moving towards creating a better environment for EVs and hydrogen plays going forward. Now, what has happened recently to cause this 12% uplift is obviously they've announced a partnership with Airbus. And this partnership included, let's quote them, they said, bringing green hydrogen to aircraft and airports. And it involves selecting a pilot airport. So you're going to pick a US airport and they're going to pilot a few different things around that, around getting hydrogen into their infrastructure and using it for aircrafts and airports. That's important as well. So they've announced that partnership. We know they've announced a partnership with Phillips 66 earlier in the year for industrial equipment and also mobility equipment, which is interesting. They've got $4 billion of cash and cash equivalents on their balance sheet. They've got a bit of accelerating revenue and potential, like we said, for legislative support. So that should be useful going forward. Now, does that mean that this is going to be a stock which we need to add to our portfolios? Well, Morgan Stanley believes so, and they've moved the stock from a $35 price target to $40, and now today we're seeing the price hovering around $33.40. Now, my take always on hydrogen has been that we're not quite ready yet. That's my view to this date. But I'm willing and I'm going to do a deeper dive into these stocks to understand them a little bit better, just to find out if we're getting there. So, I mean, let's take this from the top, right? So we know with hydrogen, you have a longer range than EVs. You have twice the fuel efficiencies versus diesel. You have lighter batteries, which take up less space, which if you think for the automotive sector, that would be very important. It's much quicker to refuel hydrogen than it is to sit and wait 30 minutes for your Tesla to charge, right? And the cost of hydrogen is on a decreasing trend, but there's still a whole bunch of barriers for me, which makes Plug and hydrogen as a whole a bit of a 2030 play. And I may be wrong, it may accelerate quicker, and I'll need to revisit in the interim, over the next couple of years. But for now, we know it's still difficult to store and transport. We know you get a whole bunch of energy wastage when you have to convert the existing sources to hydrogen. It's still a high cost, even though it's trending down, it's still a very high cost. And there's a lack of infrastructure fundamentally. And if we know anything from EVs and Elon Musk's journey, it took him 10, 15 years to go along that journey to get to where we are today, which is still, let's be honest, I know here in Europe it's a little bit better, but subpar EV infrastructure globally, right? So those are my kind of concerns / red flags, but it doesn't mean we can't overcome them and do some research around how that could be better. Now, we know there are a few famous short sellers like Kerrisdale Capital who, have always said this a bunch of gimmick with what they're doing. We know there's been various, the reason I'm not too excited by this Airbus deal, even though it's a great deal and you can see why the market is up, is we've seen deals like this before with Plug. Plug have been public since, I think, the 90s, right? So they've been around for a long time. We know in 2014 they announced a Walmart deal. It kind of climbed up and then went back down again. We know in 2017 they did a partnership with Amazon as well for some of their forklifts. And again, we just couldn't get any sustainable momentum. In fact, let's see if we can pull up the chart for Plug. That'd be useful. Let's see if we can pull up the chart. So as you can see, we're on the weekly and we can pretty much, let's go back out. You can see that it's been around, even early 2020, you're a $2, $3, $4 stock, and then it started running in 2020. If you go back beyond this, you're going to see the pattern emerge because you probably wouldn't expect this, but if we just go back out, there we go. That's what we were looking for. This is a weekly chart, by the way, guys, but you can just see the volatile nature of this stock. I mean, obviously they've had various splits and all sorts, but if we just try to focus in on 2014, That's your 2014. That is your Walmart pump in April when they announced it, April-ish. Yep, that was it, if I recall correctly. And then you've had in 2017, you had a bit of Amazon pump, and it kind of just sat down here. But then you've just got this enormous growth in 2020 and 2021, as we know it's coming more on the radar. So to summarize, it's definitely on the radar for me. I'm looking at Plug, and I'm looking at it as a long-term infrastructure play. And more importantly, not just Plug. I'm looking at the space. I'm trying to see who's going to be the winner in the space. And I think a lot of people are putting their money in Plug Power to say, look, these are the clear winners. They're the clear leaders. And they're the ones you want to bet on going into this. And I think, look, they're getting some impressive partnerships. That's great. But these are memorandums of understanding, right? They don't directly relate to revenue. That's what I want to see. When they say Palantir has secured a client, that's revenue, right? That's going to show in their next AQ. Whereas when you see these kind of memorandum of understandings and, partnerships to explore infrastructure with Airbus, that's not revenue, right? So we're still far off. It's still a good move. It's a good step. It's going to help the stock move, but that's not real tangible revenue and growth of the industry. It's not adoption, right? But it is the early seeds of adoption. So definitely hydrogen is a long play. It's not going anywhere. We're going to have plenty of opportunities to buy into our favorite hydrogen plays and identify them as we see who the winners are, who's quick out the blocks, who makes good progress. And obviously Plug Power has a lot of retail interests, and that's why you're seeing very volatile movements in the Plug Power price. But overall, I'm going to be keeping an eye on it. It's great news for the Airbus partnership, up 12%. So anybody who's investing, congrats, doing well on your Plug Power. But for me, from a very long-term point of view, I've got a lot more research to do in the space, and I think the space has a lot more maturing to do. I definitely think we could be onto something in terms of competing with EVs. I mean, if the price can come down, if the infrastructure can be good, and obviously the refueling will be really quick compared to a 30-minute charge of an EV, then that could be really promising. Now, the only caveat to that is if this infrastructure takes so long that EVs reduce their charging time to 3-4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, before hydrogen can become competitive, then that could be a land grab, which we'll have to wait and see if that happens. All right, guys, there's my update on Plug Power and why it's up 12% in today's market, despite a volatile market elsewhere. If you enjoy this type of video, then please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.